that idea that you can build a life of design. You don't have to live a default life. You don't have to feel like you are living this counterfeit version of what you really hoped for. You can create and build a life you are excited to live every day. It just takes finding the right resources and taking the step.
Without Fear of Her Future podcast is for women who are passionately pursuing financial freedom, using multiple streams of income and real estate to accomplish their goals. We are here to empower you to be brave, dream big, and design a life that you love that inspires others to do the same. I'm your co-host, Andrea Engstrom, a real estate investor and business coach and co-founder of the Partnership for Realtors. I'm here with my co-host, Tresa Todd, founder of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network and author of the best-selling book, Without Fear of Her Future. Over the past 2 years, Tresa has had nearly 200,000 join her masterclass, where she teaches women how to become successful real estate investors. Hey, Tresa.
Hey, well, I'm excited about our guest today. So living an unconventional life requires unconventional plans. Financial advisor Mary Lyons shares strategies to build a life by design rather than by default, by optimizing income streams so that you can retire earlier with more income. We are all about that, aren't we, Andrea?
Yes, ma'am.
So stop focusing on not going broke and start building true wealth. So I am excited for our guest today. Welcome to the show, Mary Lyons.
Hi.
Hey, Mary.
I'm excited to be here.
Well, Mary, tell us about your path and how did you get into financial planning?
Yeah, I think I took an unconventional path to get here. My dad actually has been an advisor since I was about 4 years old. And if you had told me at any point in time when I was growing up that I would end up in this line of work, I would have laughed at you for days and days and days. But I think what really happened to me is I had ideas of what I wanted to do with my life. And initially, I wanted to get an English degree. And my dad pointed out that I wouldn't get a high-paying job with an English degree. So I went for journalism. And then I looked at what a starting journalist would make and realized I could actually make more as a barista at Starbucks. So I thought, okay, I don't want to do this. And then I thought, okay, maybe I want to do something in interior design because I love the way a house comes together when you pull everything in and all the architectural aspects. But I realized if I did that, I would end up paying for a couple of extra years of college because my parents told me I was cut off after 4 years. And so I graduated and I really had no idea what I wanted to do. And I had an opportunity to start a mortgage company for a financial planning firm. And in doing that, I really got to focus on how a mortgage integrates into the bigger financial picture. And after doing that for 3 years, what I realized is I really enjoyed talking about the bigger financial picture a lot more than I did acting as a loan officer. So I made the jump. And I have to say, I feel very fortunate because I was in my mid-20s when I made that jump. And I felt like I found the thing that I was supposed to be doing. And I really feel like, I talk about a life of design, but I kind of fell into this by default and then figured out that I actually really love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, your philosophy on personal finance is very different from the typical advisor. So talk to us about your approach.
I think most advisors right now are focused on really giving advice that does prevent you from going broke, but it is not designed to help most of America become truly wealthy. It's really about deferring gratification, right? You save and save and save. And if you talk to your advisor, they tell you you need to be saving more, live on less, put more away for the future. Mm-hmm. And then 30 or 40 years later, when you're finally ready to retire, they tell you, no, don't spend very much of this because you might run out. And so I just feel like that leads to a life of deprivation. And I don't really understand why anybody would be excited about that approach. I certainly wasn't. And so I really began to look for alternative solutions that were more efficient. And what I found was if you're focused on net worth, you may end up with a lot of money, but that doesn't necessarily translate into income. And as an example of that, I have a gentleman who just came to start working with me, $10 million worth of real estate, free and clear, barely enough cash flow to pay the taxes on it because it's all vacant commercial lots. And so he has all this money, which is great for your ego. But if you can't spend it, what's the point?
Yes.
So I just start by focusing on income from the very, very beginning, because you can take your income to the grocery store. That's what you need to live a lifestyle you're excited about. And that's really the major shift, because when you change what you're focused on, the strategies you pursue change with that.
Oh, I love it. So our listeners get really excited about financial freedom. They don't want to be broke while they're doing it. But so tell us, what are some of the strategies that you recommend for someone who wants to retire early, which means they have income that they can actually spend and live on?
Well, I think the first key here is efficiency. And if I were going to start a business, I would never just kind of try and figure out what to do if I was looking to really scale it. So if you think about just kind of jumping into something without understanding it, I think that can be very dangerous. But if you understand that what you want to do is start growing income and scale it, you have to build a system first. So the first thing that I teach our clients is something that I call the easy button. And that's really about taking the assets you have or the cash flow that you have and optimizing the back-end distribution strategy so that you automatically have more income. This happens when you have a combination of investments, and that could be anything from real estate to stock market to private equity and whole life insurance. And sometimes I feel like I say those words and people go, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure about that. But if you look at how those two asset classes interact together, if you structure it correctly and you kind of pay attention to the Goldilocks ratios, you can't have too much, too little, it has to be just right. You can frequently increase your income on the back end by 30 to 70% without doing anything different than what you were doing today. And then once you've built that system, the second piece that we teach is something that I call supercharging, which is where you borrow against the insurance contract and you use that money to acquire assets that produce more income. So those types of assets could be real estate, could be private equity deals, could be hard money lending, a lot of the things that you guys talk about all the time. But when you do that with the acquisition system, sometimes you can really scale your income in 6 and even 7-figure ways without having to come up with more resources along the way.
Okay, so you shared a lot of terms there that I think some of our listeners are going to be like, what just happened?
Yeah.
I want what she's talking about, but I have no idea what this means. I'd like to break down some of those things throughout our conversation today. So one of the strategies that deeply resonates with us as real estate investors is this concept of acquiring assets that create income. So can you give us a couple of examples of income creating assets and share how that fits into a plan, and like, how do you get it to be, a higher income producing asset than just buying it traditionally?
Right. Okay. So I think I'm going to take a step back from that for a second, just to go through some of how this works. So when you fund a whole life insurance policy, if you go to a traditional life insurance agent, they're going to fund it in a way that is really beneficial for them and not necessarily very beneficial for you. And so there's a difference between committing to premiums that you're going to pay for, the next 20, 30, 40 years, or designing a contract that you could fund in as little as 3 years, and giving yourself flexibility for how you fund that along the way. So when you fund an insurance contract, specifically whole life insurance for liquidity, you can get to the point where in year 1, you have access to 85% of the amount that you deposited in the contract in the first place. In year 2, 95%. In year 3, you could be looking at almost 99%. So there's a very short period of time where there's cost in the contract. But once you get into that stage and you're borrowing against it, what actually happens is the insurance company keeps all of your money invested and earning for you. So you're never giving up any of the growth. And then you can use the insurance company's money as you could do a down payment on a rental property that you were looking at. And the beauty of that type of loan from the insurance company is that it's unstructured. So you have the ability to pay nothing if you're flipping a house, or you have the ability, if you're renting a property out, to wait until it's rented and then just take whatever profit you have to pay that piece back. You can skip months of payments. You can start it again. You can change how much you pay every time, or you could pay nothing for years at a time. And so when you have that kind of flexibility, when you are looking at purchasing real estate, that does really amazing things. So one of the things that I did recently is I built some cabins homes in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. It's a very hot spot. If you're in Dallas, everybody likes to go there. And I can say that it probably took me a pretty substantial amount to get a cabin off the ground. But the beautiful thing is that I just borrowed for the down payment and the carry costs and the furnishing from my insurance contract. And then once it's rented out, I take the profits to pay that back. And after I'm done paying the loan back, I have all of the profitable income moving forward. And in the meantime, I kept all of my money compounding and growing for me the entire time. And the reason that's important is because if you look at a compound growth curve, all the best growth is on the back end. So if I'm constantly taking my cash for down payment, it's never even making it onto the compound growth curve. If I can keep growth on my money and use it to do the things I want to do, that becomes very beautiful. And I think where we all tend to make mistakes is we start thinking it's an either or choice.
Right.
And the choice should be and. Yes. And.
Yes, I love this.
Yes.
And this is a principle or a strategy that my husband Josiah and I were introduced to right before we became real estate investors. And so you're affirming so much of how we started out our business. And I'm so excited for you to share this because I don't know how to explain this to everybody that are learning real estate investing. I just do what I'm told, right? And so
yeah, and this is just so important to real estate investors. This is the next step. Once you've learned how to invest, now we need this next piece because now we can go 2 and 3 times faster and harder and smarter and better. So keep going.
Yeah. I mean, I did a case study recently for someone who was looking to invest in real estate. And they had been working with a very traditional financial advisor. They actually paid more than $20,000 just to have a plan designed for them. Their household income was about $400,000 a year, but it was new. They were entrepreneurs and their business just started having success. And they were putting a pretty substantial amount of money away, about $70,000 of after-tax money going into this plan. And if you looked at what they'd actually have to retire on when they were going to be at a retirement age, it was about $156,000 of income per year, which is great, but it isn't the same as the $400 that they were making at that particular point in time. And it doesn't factor in inflation. Mm-hmm. What we showed them is if you hit the easy button, which is just funding the insurance contract and continuing to do traditional investments, they could get to about $230 of income using all the same assumptions, but changing how you spend the money when you retire. So that already was a nice little bump. And then we showed them how, with that exact funding, within 30 days of funding the contract, if they borrowed against the contract and went and bought a vacation rental property, and they had one in mind that had been rented out for, probably 3 years, so they knew what the math looked like, that if we added that back into the plan and re-optimized it, that it actually got them to a point where they could potentially have over $400,000 of income per year, and they didn't have to save an extra penny. And this is where I get so excited about what you guys are doing, because the easy button's great. I mean, it's an improvement, but when you think about how much larger the improvement is when you introduce assets that produce income, that's where the real magic is. I just do the prepping to make sure all of that is efficient, but you guys are the real masterminds here.
Wow.
Love it. Love it.
Yes. Well, what advice would you give a woman who has worked for several years, but now realizes that she is not on track to retire when she was hoping to? So what can she do about it now?
I think the first thing that she needs to do is find a mentor who's further along than she is. Yeah. That would be my primary piece of advice right there. But I think also examining if the current strategies aren't working for you, you need to find alternate ways to get to your goals. It can't just be, I hope this all works out, cross my fingers, I'm not going to look at it. But I think really looking for the right mentors and the right people who have done the things you want to do that can teach you how to do them.
I love that. We are all about mentors around here. Mm-hmm. In creating a plan for future retirement, what questions should we begin asking ourselves?
I think the most important question you can ask is, what does your dream life look like? Because I can't tell you how many people I talk to that know they want something that's different than what they're living right now, but they aren't sure what that is. Mm-hmm. And so as an advisor, I can do a bunch of math and I can show you how it works, but having more money doesn't always make you happier. right? It gives you the opportunity to have different experiences and that sort of thing. But I can't tell you how many clients I have that are extremely wealthy and they're glued to their desk 24/7 and don't get to spend time with their families. So I think really getting clarity on what you want and then being almost laser focused on how do I get those things to the exclusivity of almost everything else. And I think shifting the focus from net worth to income just means that you can get there faster. But that clarity of dreams, I think, is so key, because how do you know how to structure your finances if you don't know what you're trying to build? Money is just a tool, and it's a tool that is really meant to help you build a life that you are excited to live. And so if you don't know what excites you and you don't know what gives you fulfillment, that's where I would start. And then I would go find an advisor or a mentor who can help you get those things.
Absolutely. I think one of the most powerful sessions that Tresa, in her mentorship, she does a session called Designing a Life That You Love. And I watched the training videos multiple times when I got into the portal, but that one I watched like 3 or 4 times because I was like, this is the key. Like there's so many things we can learn about investing, but if we don't have clarity of the life that we want to create, it's like, well, yeah, you could take any path, you could take any road, but it may not get you where you want to go in terms of what you want your life to look like. So I love, this is great wisdom. You're dropping bombs, Mary. I love this.
Thank you. I actually think this is a really common problem. And I think that it happens because when we're kids, most of us were told we can do anything we want to do, either by a teacher or by a parent, right? And then for some of us, this may have happened sooner rather than later. But as you get older, people start telling you to make practical decisions. Yes. They start telling you to shut off that heart that you have that tells you what you want to do and start thinking with your head a lot more. And a lot of times I think when people do this or give advice, they're very well meaning, but they don't realize how damaging the advice actually is. Yeah. I mean, I know there's a young gentleman that I talked to that really wanted to be a chef and could have been amazing, could have been a sommelier, could have been in that industry and would have been lit up every single day. Instead, he decided to become an attorney and is a litigator and hates his job. So you think about these kinds of things, people make decisions just for the money. And if we do this right, if we actually spend the time reconnecting or regenerating dreams and finding new ways, I think it becomes a lot easier to build a path to those things. But a lot of us just try and convince ourselves, hey, it's not possible, because then you have an excuse not to take action.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. You know, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a firefighter and on the American Gladiators show. Yes. So maybe it's time to revisit my dreams again soon. Okay.
I love that. I think that's phenomenal. That tells me that you are a very, very strong woman right there. And you're probably not going to take a lot of grief from anybody. And you probably really, really, really believe in service to other humans. And I think that's phenomenal. So even if you never actually become an American Gladiator, I'm going to tell you, because we just did this for my son's birthday, you can rent an American Gladiator bounce house obstacle course, and you could just have an American Gladiator party and live out your dreams.
I'm here for it.
Be there for it, Andrea.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, you know, we all have ideas about what it looks like someday when we grow up. And I can't tell you the number of women that I talk to that are 50 or 60 years old and they're still trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up or what they want their life to look like. But let's talk about that. How many years should women plan for as they look toward retirement? Because there's a lot of women 50, 60 plus, but they've got a lot of life left. Right. So what do you recommend people plan for? 30
to 35 years. Yeah. I know that sounds almost outrageous, but if the typical retirement age is around 65, if you're looking at life expectancy, I think life expectancy in the United States right now, the unisex number is about 77. So that seems like a very, very short period of time, but I think it's very dangerous to think that that's all you have, because more than half the population lives beyond that. My grandmother lived to be 98 years old. If you look at what the insurance companies are doing right now, when I first got licensed back in 2003, the maturity date on an insurance contract was age 100. What happens if you're still alive when that contract matures is they pay you the death benefit while you're living. And that sounds great because you get this big influx of money on your 100th birthday. But first of all, what are you going to do with it at that point? And second of all, it becomes taxable. And so if you were expecting to leave $1 million or $10 million to your family, and now you're paying taxes on that big giant amount at a very high tax rate, and if you're in a state that has property taxes or not property income taxes, right, then you're going to end up losing a big amount of that. And so the beneficiaries actually were suing the insurance companies and winning because no one told them that that was even a possibility. So the insurance companies were basically having to double pay claims. And so what they did almost unilaterally several years ago is that they moved the maturity date for the entire industry to 120. And
Wow.
Right. And so if the people who are the experts in mortality have moved it back that far, then we need to pay attention to that. And we need to make sure that we're planning for our life potential so that we don't put ourselves into a position where, hey, we could have been having a very full life, but oops, we're out of money.
So what advice would you give a woman who is looking for a financial advisor for herself, or a mentor in that area? What are questions that she should be asking to find an advisor who would be a good fit for her?
I think the first question you need to ask an advisor is, what are you personally doing?
Ooh.
Because a lot of times, I have a lot of advisors that work for me. I've been in this industry a long time. I've seen a lot of people come and go. And I will tell you that frequently, and you probably see this in real estate, and you see this also in the mortgage industry. It attracts people who like the idea of money, but maybe don't have the work ethic. And so frequently what people advise and then what they're actually doing are two very, very different things. So I believe in transparency. If a client wants to see what I'm doing, I'm open kimono, right? Like if you don't think I'm far enough ahead of where you are or add value with what I'm doing, then don't work with me, right? And trust your gut, because I think for some reason, there are so many women I talk to that have been convinced that they're not good at math or money or, this isn't the realm they should be in. And when we really start talking, I'm like, you know a lot more than you think you know. So trust your gut on that. And to the point of trust, if you don't trust the advisor, I don't care if they have a fiduciary responsibility or not. If you don't have that gut feel of this person will put my interests before their own, run the other way. Because the thing people think is, oh, well, I'll ask if they're a fiduciary. That is important, but Bernie Madoff had a fiduciary obligation to his clients, and where'd that get them? That trust component, if you don't trust them, don't do it. And then I'd say that the other thing is, if an advisor does not ask you what your dreams are, how are they supposed to help you achieve them?
That's huge.
How do you know how to use a tool if you don't know what you're building?
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I love that you're transparent with your clients, and that you're doing to me, it's really important that who I'm learning from is someone who actually does what they teach and is not just theory, presenting a theory or something. So I think that's really powerful. Can we dig in for just a second on how do you actually work with clients? You mentioned earlier, like an example of an advisor who charged a flat fee of like $20,000 and then whatever else happens after that. But I hope that's okay to ask you that kind of detail. But how do you work with clients, and just so people can get a feel for how does it work working with an advisor or someone like you? Yeah.
So for me personally, there's I have a firm. We have probably about 10 advisors with our firm right now, and we're growing pretty rapidly.
Awesome.
Everybody in our firm is a little bit different. When I started in the industry, I didn't charge anything for a meeting. I figured I would just show people what I could do for them, and then they could make a decision. My business is almost entirely referral at this point, and I have a huge waiting list. And so at this point, I do actually charge a fee to take somebody through all of the education, and then they can either implement the plan with me, and I'll continue to work with them and mentor them, or they can go elsewhere. Some of our senior advisors that are working in our firm will also charge a fee, just a lower one. And then some of our advisors don't charge a fee at all, because what we have found in our firm is that everybody has a different niche. So there's a woman in my office, the thing that lights her up and gets her out of bed every day is that she likes working with new families, people who have recently gotten married or are just starting to have kids. They might not be able to afford my fee at that point in time. And so we want them to have other options. And then in January, we're launching a group class curriculum. So if they wanted to go through a group class where I could still teach them everything, and then implementation could happen with their own advisor or with one of ours, that's an option as well. And so we're just looking at all kinds of different ways to do things. So then the third option that also is launching in January is a mastermind group, which is really focused on, okay, once you've built the system, what types of assets should you be acquiring, and how do you even know how to analyze them? Where we'll have experts from across the industry who come in and really say, okay, if you're doing real estate, this is what you need to know. If you're doing a private equity deal, here's what you need to look out for in a contract. And really all those kind of next level pieces that once you get your baseline, you graduate into.
Awesome.
This is great. Great. This is a whole next level conversation. And I'm so glad that our listeners are having the opportunity to hear this, because this is what the wealthy know that the majority don't know. And so this is just such a powerful thing, and especially for women to hear it from another woman. I absolutely am stoked about that. And so I'm just so excited for you to be our guest today. But I want to know what you're working on today that you are most excited about, Mary.
I am in the middle of a book. So the book is written and I am in the editing stages. And I have to say, I'm really excited about being done with it.
Well, tell us the name of it.
Yeah. So the name of the book is going to be New School Millionaire. And
Cool.
It's really all about leaving behind all that old school methodology that, traditional or conventional financial advisors have been pushing, and embracing the new strategies that are available that change income radically. And so some of it will be my own personal story. There's case studies from different clients. There's even an inclusion of, okay, when does this work? When does it not work? And really just a place where people can get more information, because the thing that I get all the time is, okay, but where can I learn more about this? Where are the books that talk to this? Where's the objective information? Yeah. And it seems like everybody who writes a book these days is, not necessarily looking at both sides of the story, but I don't think it needs to be oversold. Like, I'd rather know, where does this all go terribly wrong, and then make my decision than only the good stuff.
Yeah. New School Millionaire. And when does it release?
It should come out in April. So we don't have the firm date yet. That's going to be dependent on how quickly I finish editing.
Okay. Well, congrats. That's a huge feat. So
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know exactly how hard that is too.
Yes. Yes. And mine actually released last April. So
great.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, you are doing incredible things. And so tell us what's next for you, other than obviously this book, which is huge. And what are your goals?
If I really think about kind of my career trajectory, I was an individual contributor for a long time, an individual advisor working directly with clients. And I hit a point really about 2 years ago where I realized, if I really want to make a significant positive impact on the American community, and I mean nationwide, that I had to get louder about what I am teaching, and I have to train other people how to do it. And so growing my firm is really the biggest priority for me. And really making sure that the messaging is out there, because the danger of the society that we live in today is that whoever is the loudest is often perceived to be the most credible.
Right.
And what I want to do is make sure that real credibility, data-driven choices is what's at the forefront, right? I want to be the person who's loud, and I want to be able to say, look, I can prove it. Let's do the math. You come with any objection or any question, and we'll run it both ways, this way or this way. But that to me is the thing that I'm most excited about moving forward, because I think there is a unique opportunity right now. And I think this is exactly what you all are doing right now, where people are open to doing things differently.
Yes.
And if they're open and they are looking for information, it's just got to be easier to find.
I agree. Wow. Well, where can women find you? If they want to work with you or want to learn more about your approach, how do they find you?
Okay, the easiest way to find me, you can go to my website. It's wealthwoman.com, or you can find me almost anywhere you use social media at The Wealth Woman. Make sure you put the in The Wealth Woman. And then I also have a podcast. It comes out on Wednesday mornings every week, and that is called the Big Wealth Podcast.
Excellent.
The Wealth Woman. That's awesome.
Awesome.
That was one of those universe winks, to be honest. I was looking for, okay, how do I want to brand myself? And I started doing the who is searches to see which domains were available. And I searched for Wealth Woman and it was available. And I thought, surely this is a compliance issue then. And I asked my compliance department, and they said, no, you can do that. And I was like, well, I'm snatching this up. I don't know why anyone else didn't.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Mary, this has been awesome. We like to ask our guests for 3 takeaways. So what are 3 things that you would advise an investor or an entrepreneur who is looking to be brave and grow, or is perhaps feeling stuck where they are?
I think the number one thing that I would recommend is to surround yourself with people who make you feel strong and who celebrate your victories. We all have that person in our life that when we go and we tell them what our big dreams are and what we're trying to accomplish, they tell us we need to be more realistic and that it's not possible. Get rid of those people, right? Like you want people that are going to say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? But that believe in you and believe in your dreams. And if they don't, they are dragging you down and holding you back, whether you realize it or not. So I'd say that's the first thing. The second thing is focus on your end goal. If your end goal is to have a whole bunch of money and you don't care if you can spend it or not, that's a really different strategy than wanting to be able to enjoy your life and creating lifestyle income. And so being clear on what your end game is would be, I think, just as important as having the right people around you. And then the last thing that I would say is, and this is, Tresa, this is what I loved about your website and you and talking to you. That idea that you can build a life of design, I mean, that's something that we say at our firm all the time. You don't have to live a default life. You don't have to feel like you are living this counterfeit version of what you really hoped for. You can create and build a life you are excited to live every day. It just takes finding the right resources and taking the step.
Woo.
Oh,
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
Well, Mary, love that. Love everything you've shared with our listeners. I know that there's going to be a lot of people that are like, what's next? I've got to get more. So we'll be sure to put the links that you mentioned in the podcast notes so people can find you. But thank you so much for joining us today and giving us kind of a glimpse into how your brain works. One of the things that comes to mind, I used to... Yeah, no. But one of the things that you said that I always, as a business coach, I always used to tell people, it's not magic, it's math. And I love that you're using real factual information to help people to build the life of their dreams. Because you kind of take that like that beautiful, wonderful, magical thing, but then you put data with it to make it happen. And that's like so exciting. There
is a place where emotion and logic come together.
Yes.
And when you get the two together, it's like a huge multiplier. I mean, I love that you even said that because I feel like all the time, it's my job is to connect the emotion and the math, right? Like to put the two together and give somebody a clear path. So thank you. I feel very seen.
Yes. Well, we love it. You're our kind of gal.
I just want to say to all of our listeners that I know that maybe this conversation just seemed over your head, and that's okay. Because that's why we have mentors. That's why we have somebody that can coach us through it. You don't have to understand it. And I always like to remind women, it doesn't matter where you are economically. It doesn't matter, where you are, what your race, what your status, what your education is. You can be a real estate investor and you can have a financial advisor that can help you to grow your wealth in a manner that Mary's talking about today. So if you're hearing this, you don't have to know all the things. You just have to know somebody that knows all the things.
Mm-hmm. Can I make one comment to that?
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times people self-select out of working with an advisor because they think they don't have enough money.
I agree.
How are you supposed to get rich if you don't have anybody teaching you.
Absolutely.
And if you already are rich, why do you need somebody else to help you? It never made sense to me. I feel like the job of the people that you work with is to meet you wherever you are on your journey and just help you take the next steps.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I love that. You're speaking my love language.
Oh, it's brilliant. Well, I think I think sometimes when we get specialized knowledge as investors, we also think, well, that means I have to be like, I have to know how to build wealth, or like if that's the only thing that it takes to be able to really build a wealth strategy. But I think it's so important that we all realize that we're just getting started. Like this is tip of the iceberg to know how to functionally do real estate investing, but knowing how to build true wealth that lasts you for a lifetime sometimes takes that deeper level, and to be able to work with somebody that can give you really sound advice based on what your hopes and dreams are and what you want your life to look like. So thank you so much, Mary, for joining us and sharing your wisdom with us. On behalf of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network and Tresa Todd, I'm Andrea Engstrom, encouraging you to be brave and dream big.